Do you know the difference between being alone and being lonely? Most people think they're the same. They're not. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stayed in a relationship even though deep down you knew it wasn't right? Have you ever felt more alone sitting next to someone than you did when you were by yourself? I'm 91 years old, and today I want to tell you something that took me most of my life to understand. Being alone might be the best thing that ever happens to you. When I was young, everyone told me the same story. Find someone, settle down, don't end up alone. It was repeated so often that I believed it without questioning it. Maybe you've heard the same thing. Maybe your parents said it. Maybe your friends say it. Maybe you're telling yourself that right now. But ask yourself this: is being with someone automatically better than being alone? Or are people just afraid of silence, afraid of facing themselves, afraid of what others might think? I believed the lie that having someone meant happiness, so I rushed into relationships, and one of them turned into a marriage that felt less like love and more like a prison. At first, everything looked normal. From the outside, we were the perfect couple. But inside that house, things were different. Have you ever walked on eggshells around someone? Have you ever felt like anything you say could start a fight? That was my life. I worked hard. I provided. I tried to be patient, tried to be understanding. I tried to do everything a good husband was supposed to do. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. And slowly something strange began to happen. I started losing pieces of myself. Little by little, my peace disappeared. My laughter disappeared. Even simple things, like sitting quietly with my thoughts, felt impossible. Because there was always tension, always criticism, always drama. Have you ever thought, how long should a person stay somewhere that destroys their peace? A year? 10 years? A lifetime? For me, it lasted far longer than it should have. One evening, I remember sitting alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet, and for the first time in years, I asked myself a simple question. Is this how I want to live the rest of my life? Not how others expected me to live, what society thought was normal, but what I actually wanted. And the answer scared me, because the truth was, I wasn't happy, not even close. I felt trapped, like I had built a life that looked respectable from the outside, but felt empty on the inside. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you're living it right now. And the hardest part? Admitting it to yourself. Because once you admit it, you have to decide what to do next. One day I realized something important. Life is not endless. When you're young, you think you have forever. But one day you wake up and realize time has been quietly moving forward the entire time. So I asked myself another question. Do I want to spend the rest of my life surviving or living? That question changed everything, because surviving was what I had been doing. Living? I had almost forgotten what that felt like. So I made a decision that shocked everyone around me. I left. I simply left. Not because I hated her, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood something. I deserved peace, and so do you. Leaving wasn't easy. People think big life decisions happen quietly. They don't. There was anger, arguments, people taking sides, friends who said I was selfish, family members who said I should just make it work. Maybe you've heard those words before. Every relationship is hard. You can't just walk away. You'll regret being alone. But here's something I learned at 70 years old. Most people give advice based on their own fears, not your happiness, not your life. Their fears. And if you listen too closely to those fears, you might spend your whole life trapped in something that isn't meant for you. So despite the noise, I left. And for the first time in decades, I lived alone. Now let me ask you something important. What scares you more, being alone or being in the wrong relationship forever? Most people never even ask themselves that question because society teaches us to fear being single as if it's some kind of failure. But when I moved into my small apartment, something unexpected happened. The silence felt strange at first, very strange. No arguing, no tension, no criticism, just quiet. And in that quiet, I started meeting someone again. Myself. You know what I did next? Things I hadn't done in years. Simple things. I went for walks without feeling rushed. I met friends for coffee. I joined local events, community gatherings, music nights. I talked to strangers. I laughed again. And something interesting happened. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. Let me say that again. I was alone, but I was not lonely. Because loneliness doesn't come from being by yourself. It comes from feeling unseen, unappreciated, disconnected. And sometimes the loneliest place in the world is inside the wrong relationship. Here's something I wish someone told me when I was younger. A relationship should add to your life, not shrink it, not suffocate it, not make you feel small. If you constantly feel drained, controlled, or unhappy, that isn't love. That's survival. And life is too short to spend decades surviving something that should bring joy. How many people stay in relationships they know are wrong just because they're afraid to start over? Too many, far too many. After I left, my life didn't end. In many ways, it finally began. I made new friends. I spent time with old ones. I traveled when I could. I went to local events, festivals, classes, conversations with people I would have never met before. And the most surprising thing, I became happier in my 70s and 80s than I had been in decades. Not because I found another partner, but because I found peace. And peace is a powerful thing. So, how about you? Are you building a life that brings you peace? Or one that only looks good from the outside? Because the world will always have opinions, but at the end of your life, the only person who truly lived your choices is you. At 91 years old, I've learned a few simple truths. First, Being alone is not something to fear. Sometimes it's the space you need to rediscover who you really are. Second, never stay somewhere that destroys your peace. No relationship is worth losing yourself. And third, happiness doesn't come from simply having someone. It comes from living a life that feels true to you. If that includes a partner, wonderful. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. Because a full life is not measured by whether someone sleeps in the other half of your bed. It's measured by how much peace lives in your heart. So, if you're afraid of being alone, let me leave you with one final question. What if the life you're truly meant to live only begins once you stop being afraid of it? To me, learning to be alone was one of the best decisions I ever made. If you want me to share more of my thoughts, please subscribe.